It is 6:30 on July 25th, 2024. Welcome to the Town of Sherborn's Select Board meeting. I'm going to ask the Assistant Town Administrator to please read the executive session agenda. And I want to make a note that there's one indicated at the beginning of the meeting, is one indicated at the end. I'm going to ask her to read both executive session items, the beginning and the end. And I think I need a vote from the board, a motion to basically, and here's what I want to do. The one at the end was put in kind of a little bit last minute. I'd like the ability to discuss it now before the open session meeting, if time allows. If time does not allow, we'll simply do it at the end. And I don't know if I need a motion to amend the agenda or whatever else, but I think that's basically the goal that I want to do here. Is so I guess, Diane, why don't you just read the two executive session agenda items?
Okay. So item number 1 is meeting with town council in executive session pursuant to Mass General Law, Chapter 38, Section 21A3, and Suffolk Construction versus DCAM 449 Mass 444, 2007, to discuss Phoenix Partners, Greenwood Street Development, LLC versus Sherborn Zoning Board of Appeals, Massachusetts Housing Appeals Committee number 2024-03, and pursuant to General Law, Chapter 38, Section 21A7, to comply with or act under the authority of any general or special law or federal grant and aid requirements, specifically the Public Records Law, General Laws, Chapter 4, Section 726, to discuss privileged communication from town council regarding litigation. Item number 2 is to discuss the collective bargaining strategy for negotiation with AFSCME Council 93, Local 335, the DPW bargaining unit, pursuant to General Law, Chapter 38, Section 21A3 and 7, and Suffolk Construction versus DCAM 449, Mass 444, parentheses 2007.
So I guess the first thing I'll do is take a motion that we can basically take the last one out of order and discuss it at this executive session if we have time.
Yeah, I move that we combine the two executive sessions at the beginning of the meeting.
Okay, pending time. If we don't have time for the second one, we'll announce that and put it at the end. Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
Okay, all in favor, Stephen?
Aye.
Jeff?
Aye.
Paul? Yep. And Marion?
Aye.
I'm aye as well. All right, for the agenda items as
we approving
what's
the
that?
open session agenda. We'll do that afterwards, right?
Yeah, I'll do that afterwards, exactly.
Right.
Okay, so for the agenda items as just read by the Assistant Town Administrator, I declared that an executive session is warranted, and I move that we go into executive session. Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, all in favor, Stephen?
Aye.
Jeff?
Aye.
Marion?
Aye.
Paul?
Aye.
I am I as well. All right, please pause or stop the recording. All right, thank you. Yes, just so people know, we had two executive session agenda items. We had one posted at the beginning, one at the end of the meeting. The end of the meeting is a bit of a last minute add-on. Per a discussion we had prior to that, an open session, we actually did them both before the meeting. So as long as everyone knows that. All right, can I please ask the Assistant Town Administrator to please read the open session agenda?
Diane, you're muted.
Sorry about that. Morning in progress. After I read the agenda, the select can vote to amend or approve the agenda, and then there's a public comment period. Nobody has asked me tonight to have a public comment. Items can be taken out of order, and topics not anticipated 48 hours in advance may be added. We have a public hearing with Eversource at 7:15 for a poll hearing regarding Great Rock Road and another poll hearing for South Main Street. Item number 3 is the consideration of early voting hours for the September primary. Jackie Morris will be here. There are APA updates tonight. The Laurel Fields Irrigation Project, Dave Goldberg. Woodhaven, Leland Farms Water Project, Sean Colleen. Transformation of Town Campus, Sean Colleen, Sam Nelson, and Mary Moore. Farm Pond Stormwater, Sean Colleen. Item number 5 is the consideration of Plumbing and Gas Inspector Steve Frasca for a term to expire June 15, 2025. Assistant Plumbing and Gas Inspector Timothy Costello for a term to expire June 15th, 2025. He's a new employee. And the MBTA Advisory Board, Steve Petty for a term to expire June 15th, 2027. That's a reappointment. Washington Street, Maple Street intersection improvement, Leland Monument relocation, and stamped concrete coloring and packing. Item number 7 is the Charles River Public Health District intermunicipal agreement. Item number 8 is consideration of use of farm pond for Sherborn Metco families. Marion Newton will speak on that. Item number 9 is Coolidge Street Apartments, the 108 Coolidge Street. Consideration of asking for a 30 or a 60-day extension on comments. Consent agenda is the payroll warrant, a 1-day liquor license for August 17th at the Sherborn Community Center. Draft minutes from June 27th, 2024. A letter of appreciation for Rick Novak. And select board reports, town administrator reports, the S&P rating call, and staffing update. I'd like to ask the board to amend the agenda to change the expiration date for the plumbing and gas inspector and the assistant plumbing and gas inspector to 2027. Thank you.
So moved.
All right, and a second.
Okay.
All right, all in favor, Stephen,
Aye.
Jeff,
Right.
Marion,
Aye.
Paul.
That was to approve the agenda with the amendment. Aye.
Yes.
Correct, yep. And I am as well. All right, thank you very much. And we'll further do, it's not bad, I'm only 3 minutes behind schedule there. We have a public hearing of Eversource. Who's presenting that, Jeannie?
You have to read an announcement, I believe, Eric.
You do.
Okay, good.
So I'm going to recuse myself on this.
Okay. All right, Town of Sherborn, notice of public hearing. The select board will hold a virtual public hearing on Thursday, July 25th, 2024 at 7:15 p.m. regarding a petition by NStar Electric doing business as Eversource Energy for obtaining a grant location to install one stub pole, number 49/15S, and one guy wire and anchor, substantially as shown on the plans made by K. Rice dated June 8, 2024, and filed herewith. Upon, along, and across the following public ways or ways of said town. Great Rock Road, southeast side, approximately 1,432 feet plus or minus, south of Peckham Hill Road. Immediately following, the select board will hold a public hearing regarding petition by NStar Electric doing business as Eversource Energy for obtaining a grant location to install one stub pole, number 10/145-1S. And one guy wire and anchor substantially shown on the plans made by K. Rice dated June 6, 2024, and filed herein upon, along, and across the following public ways of said town. That's South Main Street, easterly side of Forest Street. Oral and written comments are invited. And thank you, Jeremy, for typing that up. Okay, so who's basic? Is there someone from Eversource to make this presentation? Or do we have staff that's going to at least do a presentation, or is it just relying on the background material and just what I read?
Rick. Is Rick up?
Yeah, I think
Yeah, this is Rick Schifoni. I'm here with Shauna Kyle. We're here for Eversource.
Oh, you're for Eversource. Sorry.
Yes, I'm
Hi,
Edit your-
sorry, my
next time,
computer's
yeah,
acting
yeah.
up.
okay. And
If you don't mind,
Shauna
edit your
Kyle is
text
our
down,
right
then
of way
I
agent.
can
for
recognize you that
the-
way. Oh, yeah, go ahead, Rick.
Yeah, the purpose of these two stub poles is to replace existing tree guys. It's to support the other poles in the neighborhood that are getting pulled over due to the load. So the existing tree guides have come down. It's not a preferred method. Putting a stub pole and a guy to support the poles is the correct way to maintain integrity of the system.
Yep. So it's not actually like a traditional, like a new pole's not going in, like you say, holding wires. It's just to support an existing pole.
Correct. But there will be a short pole there with a guy on it across the street. It's not going to have any other wires on it except for the guy wire to hold up the pole across the street.
Yep, I know what you mean. There's one actually near my house, which is still held up by a tree, and I look at it every time I drive by, thinking they're gonna
Yeah,
replace that someday.
it's not the optimum way to have our poles supported.
No, definitely not. Definitely not. Absolutely. All right. Are there any questions from the board members? And how about the general public? Any questions from the general public about this? Or Sean, go ahead.
Yeah, I just wanted to update the one on South Main Street is per my request. I've been working for actually a couple of years. There was a line of large oak trees that died, one in front of the cemetery on South Main, and then two others kind of at the foot of where Forest Street comes down onto South Main Street. And we basically had to wait. One of the guy-wires actually fell out. The one in front of the cemetery, that tree was really concerning. A storm took the limb out that was holding the guy, so we ended up getting that tree down. But further down the line, if anyone can picture the way the wires take off and they cross South Main Street and go up Forest Street, it's needed, and there's a tree there that needs to come down still.
All right, yeah, I've definitely seen it, and I'll just say I agree with this. Like all these improvements they're recommending here, I was intent to support this. It seems like a no-brainer to me. Anyone else from the public? Anything else? All right, so I'll close the public. Oh, Jeannie, you have something?
I just wanted to tell you that you're going to have to. I need 3 of you to come in. If you approve this, I need 3 of you to come in and sign the 2 petition notices in front of Jackie. So if you could do it Monday or Tuesday, that would be great.
Okay, will it be ready tomorrow by any chance? Probably not.
Jackie is not in tomorrow.
Okay, get them in them. All right, well, thank you very much. I'll close the public portion of this hearing. I'll bring it back to the select board. Any other comments from the select board? All right, seeing none. Any motions relative to this hearing, to these 2 granted locations? Do we need 2 separate votes, or we take 1 vote in both granted locations? All right. We'll do 1 vote for, someone give me a motion. Jeff, you're muted. Jeff, you're muted.
I move that we approve these 2 poll hearing locations as described by Eversource.
All right. Do I have a second?
Second.
All right,
Second.
all in favor, Stephen?
Aye.
Jeff?
All right.
Marion?
Aye.
And I am as well. Great. I'm liking watching their improvements on the new poles they're putting on Lake Street there. You know, because it's going to hold higher voltage, putting in taller poles, but it's basically getting all free new poles, and that's a good thing.
It's all good, but with Route 16 today and the polls, I was better off walking to town hall than driving. And I gave Sean the word on that. He's probably here somewhere.
I've been personally pleased. I live in the south side, and we lost power that day when that 1 pole went down. But the secondary feed has been huge. So,
yeah,
thank you guys at Eversource.
Very true.
All right, now moving on then. What do we got next on the agenda here? Consideration of early voting hours for the September primary. Jack, you on? Yes, you are. You're right there.
Yes, thank you, Eric. So this is just a continuation of what I've been asking for the last state or federal elections. We are required to be open 25% of our hours. So basically like, an hour and a half or whatever for early voting. But I'm asking for the board to approve our voting hours from 9 to 12. That gives us the opportunity to get the poll pad set up, and then we have to process all the vote by mails that come in, the voting in person ballots that come in that day. So it'll just allow us to do all this without having to have Kelly stay extra hours. So I'm just asking for the Monday through Friday that you allow me to hold early voting from 9 to 12.
All right. Any discussion or motions from the board?
No, I would make a motion that we do allow early voting at the hours that Jackie mentioned. Was it 9 to 12, you said?
Yes.
Second.
I second.
Okay, motion and a second. All in favor, Stephen,
Aye.
Jeff,
All right.
Paul,
Aye.
Marianne,
Aye.
I am as well. All right, good job.
Thank you
One
very
other
much.
note, Jackie, I think if people want apps to vote absentee or mail ballots, don't they have to submit it by like August 8th or something like that?
No, it's like the Tuesday, or it's the Tuesday before the election.
Okay.
So what's that, like the 20th? I don't know. I'd have to look. It's like the
You mailed
27th.
it to everyone, though. I just know that in August, there's a date coming up where they have to submit their
It's a week before the election so that we actually have time to, so the post office has time to deliver them.
Yep.
It's a week before the election
All right.
by 5 o'clock, that Tuesday before.
Thanks.
You're welcome.
All right, very good. Thank you, Jackie. Okay, next on the agenda is ARPA updates. I'll take them in the order as presented here. I think Dave Goldberg, I see him on the call here for Laurel Fields. Dave, are
Yeah.
you presenting on this or discussing it?
Yeah, hi, how are
Good.
you? Yeah, just to give you an update on what's transpired since last we chatted about it. We met in November, if you recall, and at the time, after we had dug the 2 wells, well A was producing about 2 gallons per minute, and well B was producing about 3 gallons per minute. And the discussion at the time was to go through this process called aqua-freed, which is essentially to put pressurized CO2 gas into the wells and try and open up some of the fissures and see if we could get additional flow out of the wells. After a few delays, we were eventually able to get aqua-freed done in mid-March. And then after more delays, we were finally able to get the pump testing done in mid-May. So the results of that, which I believe are in your packets, it was done by Cummings. I think it's page 18 on your packets, I believe. But you can see the results of that, which is that well A did not have much change. We went from about 2 gallons per minute to about 2.5 gallons per minute. Well B, we went from 3. We actually more than doubled the output of well B. We went from about 3 gallons per minute to about 7.9 gallons per minute. So I've had a couple lengthy discussions with designer of the system. He said that's well within capacity for him to design a system. He said he's done certainly irrigation systems with less than that. The difference is that it would require a holding tank now. We were hoping to do a direct feed where we wouldn't actually have to design a holding tank if we had the original, hope for gallons per minute. But in this case, we'll have to incorporate a holding tank into the system. And that's kind of where it stands. I mean, we're ready to move forward with the project. Nothing's kind of changed in terms of the spec. We have to design a system with the holding tank in place now and running the lines and getting electricity in and so forth. But when talking to him the other day, I think the estimate still remains on target with the funds we have left. And yeah, we're ready to move forward.
Good. Jeff, you had a question? You're muted. You're still muted. No, you're still muted for some reason. Here, maybe I can unmute you.
I'm a rookie at this. I'm not usually muted. We've talked about this before, Dave, but you can refresh my memory.
Sure.
I was hoping we could do some kind of soil embellishment or improvement so that it retains the water too. The soil there is pretty crappy from, it being stripped out, a quarter century ago. So in addition to the irrigation, and given that you have to put a tank in, if we could do soil improvement measures, it might require less irrigation if we have, the ability to retain the water longer rather than just passing through.
Yeah, I mean, I like the idea. I think it was a little outside the scope of what we had originally planned for. I don't know what the cost would be for something like that above and beyond what has been sort of allocated. So, I mean, I think if we end up under budget for some reason, we can look at options there. But right now, I'll be honest with you, I'm just trying to keep this entire project within what the original scope was.
Well, I wonder though that if it could maybe not, you wouldn't need the tank, if that caused us to not need the tank by having improved soil conditions.
Yeah, I still think we would need the tank. So you have to separate the storage of the water and how much water you have available from whatever your watering cycle is. Because you might have a 10,000 gallon tank that you only use once a week. You may have a 10,000 gallon tank that you use 5 times a week.
Yeah.
So if we enhance the soil, what that's going to do is it's going to change our watering pattern. It's not going to necessarily change the system. It takes about a full day or so to replenish the system with with
Yeah.
the 10 gallons per minute that we're talking about. So essentially, the best you're gonna get out of the system is watering about 2 acres a day. And so if you do something to the soil, that would be great. It would actually just lower the amount of times you needed to water in a given week. But it would, I don't think it would dramatically change the system itself.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah.
So I'll recognize Paul and then Jeremy. Paul?
So I had two questions. The first was, are we talking about one well, the one that's the 8 or 7.9, or are we talking about doing 2 wells? That's question number one.
So both wells have been drilled. Both wells had the aquifers process done. At this point, it's just installing a pump on both of those wells to extract the water. So given that we've already drilled the lower yielding well, it doesn't make sense not to utilize it at this point. So we're going to, the plan is to install pumps on both and have it feed the tank.
Okay, so my second question is dealing with the cost of this. And we have this report that there was 2 items of ARPA funds provided totaling 160,000, and I think the 154,000 has been spent. Is that what that means?
Yeah, something like that. I think there's about 3,000 left of the 160 that's been allocated.
Okay, 5,300. So my question would be, how much more money is it going to take to finish this project the way you envision it? Do we have enough money in ARPA funds to do that?
We do. So we haven't put everything out to bid. We don't know the specifics, but based off of estimates in terms of how much we think the electrical is going to cost, the pumps themselves, the storage, and so forth, it's going to fall actually right into that number.
So we have 190,000 that we haven't allocated,
Correct.
plus the 5,000 that you haven't spent. So that's 195,000. What amount do you need? 195,000?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, so I'm prepared to make that motion to make these improvements, but the chair may want to hear from other people and not take my motion.
I did
right
want to
now.
hear from Jeremy. And I don't know, are they looking for that tonight? It's listed as an update. It's not listed as like a vote to allocate funds. Let me hear what Jeremy has to say.
Yeah, thanks, Eric. Actually, Paul asked the questions I had. I wanted to get some understanding of the cost to complete the project in relationship to the sort of the earmarked funds that the selectmen had. So Dave just provided that. That was my question.
Okay. Now, Paul mentioned about actually allocating the funds tonight. Is that your desire, Paul, to
Yes,
do
because
that? And is it given our agenda item?
let me take that in phases. The reason why I want to do it tonight is that these ARPA funds expire. They have a deadline of the end of the year. And that's not just a theoretical deadline. It's a real hard stop in this case. And it's going to involve more than our voting this. They actually have to have some contract in place, or they have to be on track to spend the money, some actual use of it. Here we are in July. There's essentially 6 months left to go. And he said he hadn't done any bidding on this thing, but he's just got some information. So by the time you do all the procurements and you get all the results in, we're up against it. So rather than risking losing $190,000 and not having this project go forward, I think we should step forward on this. And yes, while it's an update, we also have a provision here that the chair can address topics not anticipated 40 hours in advance. And I would suggest you didn't anticipate in advance a report that they actually could do the project. The way I read these reports looked like not much had been done, and therefore didn't look like the project was going forward. So I'm pleasantly surprised that some expert out there thinks he can make this project work with a tank And therefore, because I didn't expect it, I don't think the chair expected it, and therefore it would fit within that provision. And I don't think anybody's going to complain because this is got this deadline. Nobody in the public is going to want to see us lose 190,000.
So I'll hear from Jeff, but I'm gonna make a quick comment before you talk, Jeff. What I'd like to do is call for the vote after we hear from all four of the ARPA things, because who knows if someone else needs money or whatever else, we want dividing it up or something along those lines. I'd like to hear all four ARPA presentations, and if we're gonna take a vote to allocate additional funds, I want to do that after we hear four, if that's okay.
Fine.
Yeah, go, Jeff.
Yeah, mine isn't a question, it's just a clarification. I believe we don't have to spend the funds by the end of this year. I think we have, I think until the end of 2025 or later, we have to have the contract in place by the end of this year.
Correct.
Do you know, Jeremy, when the funds have to be expended, or Stephen?
Yeah, you're correct, Jeff. By the end of this calendar year, by the end of 2024, the funds must be allocated and essentially contracts in place. And then you have another year to actually spend the funds under those contracts.
Yeah, I just wanted to clarify that. Thank you. Thanks, Eric.
Stephen?
So I'm just gonna play sort of devil's advocate a little bit and just kind of see what the board thinks. I guess I am somewhat disappointed with the degree of enhancement of the wells and the fact that now there needs to be a holding tank situation. Now, I acknowledge 100% I am not at all an expert in this type of arena. So I'm certainly going to defer, Dave, to your knowledge on this. But I know that, Daryl Beardsley has said, I think probably multiple times in different meetings about the possibility of having sort of an alternate overall strategy for turf management that isn't sort of water. I think she has said that essentially if you overwater, what happens is that the roots of the grass remain quite shallow. Whereas if you sort of have a more resilient turf management plan, they will grow deeper roots and therefore can maybe survive drought conditions a little better and essentially not need long-term as much watering. Now, I know that probably totally redoing the strategy, I mean, there is a certain amount of, we have spent a whole bunch of money, right? But there is a kind of a sunk cost fallacy there. I guess the question really I have is, is there realistically an alternate, potential alternate strategy given this sort of relatively low water yield that we could explore instead? I know that the funding would become challenging. I think that we would probably end up redirecting the $190,000 to something else just so that we could get it spent. Basically, I would go with Eric's plan of essentially let's just spend it on capital projects that we've already gotten approved, and then essentially just regroup on the Laurel Fields. And again, this is just me being devil's advocate and trying to get that discussion out there.
Yeah, do you want me to respond? Is that okay?
Yeah, you respond and I'll recognize Sean.
Yeah, sure. So again, I completely understand what Daryl's saying, but I would, as I said to Jeff, I would separate out the watering strategy from the system that we use to water, right? So whether or not we water more often or less often, what we use, to enhance the ground or whatever, that's somewhat separate. So there may be techniques in the future to, to use less water. That just means that the tank just gets used less often, right? In the end, we have what we were looking for, which is the ability to water the fields. In particular, there are areas around where the goalies are that are very challenging to grow grass because they just don't get enough water, and certainly around midfield. And we feel like at the very least we can water about a third of the facility. And in the troubling times when we need to get the areas around the goal and around the center field done, we can do that with extra watering for those specific areas. So of course it's not as much water as we want, but it's still, I think, a win for the facility and for the town overall to have water there, and then put a plan together to manage the field and use the appropriate amount of water going forward.
Okay. Sean. You're muted, just so you know.
To further answer that question, when you have 13 gallons per minute, your strategy is never going to be overwater. They're basically forcing their hands. You need the tank because you can't water with 13 gallons a minute. It's going to take a day and a half to fill it, which forces you to be pretty conservative. It also should put people's mind at ease. It's certainly not going to affect anyone else's water table. There's no way that's going to be drawn against any local wells. They're hundreds and hundreds of feet away. So soil enhancement can be done anytime. Getting the system in, just remember, it's mostly just infrastructure. You're talking about electricity, you're talking about building some type of a facility and getting stuff subsurface. We can always enhance the soil. We do it all the time. We've been enhancing the soil at Fessenden, trying to actually make it less wet for a decade now. So those things can all be addressed, and so is seeding and treatment. It's not that everything has to be done at once. It'd be great to do it, but those are strategies that go on for forever.
And I will say that's a good point, that 13 gallons a minute is not exactly going to like draw anything from the wetland or influence anything, or probably have a radius of influence of like 20 feet or something, if that. All right. Any other questions from the board here? Any other comments from the general public? All right. So if it's okay, I'd like to move on and hear at least the other three presentations before we take any motions or actions relative to any of them. I'd like to hear all three of them. So Sean, you're presenting on Woodhaven, Leland Farms.
So an update on that, the Mass DEP about a month ago, finally, after I think about almost 2 years, approved our permit for the modifications to the systems, which basically allows us to start working. Our consultants, Jeremy and myself, will be meeting hopefully next week. They're finalizing the plans for the actual equipment. But remember, it's almost two projects in one. There's site work that has to happen to connect the well lines and replumb things both between Leland and Woodhaven, and then there's a shed addition, which will then house more equipment and a second tank. So by getting the permit approval, finally, we're able to start planning, and my intent is to get the site work done in hopefully the next 2 months. So we're not backed up against, winter conditions with trying to run well lines and digging up roads. So that's kind of the update. We haven't spent any of the money, but it's forthcoming probably in this quarter, and it's going to be, it's certainly committed, not under contract, but it's committed to that project.
All right. Any questions from me, the board, or the public? Okay, seems straightforward. I'll take that and actually go right into the next one. Transformation of town campus. That's still going to be, it has Sam Nelson and Mary Moore, unless any one of the three of you want to speak, that's fine.
So anyone that's been through town hall in the past 2 or 3 days, we finally, Lynch is there working on the roundabout, as everyone knows. And they moved into the campus, and they demoed the stairs that go between town hall's side entrance and the front entrance of the library. And they're close to finishing all the risers in the next few days. They'll, the rest of the granite's coming tomorrow. So the stairs will be complete. The railings come, I think, in about a month. So that project, which basically takes up almost all the funding that's left on that earmark, that'll be finished in the next month or two.
Okay. Any questions, comments from the board or public?
Yeah,
Yeah, Paul?
question. Of the two projects that Sean described, no additional funding is needed at this time?
Correct. We had done additional funding at town meeting for the what we anticipate the final cost of Woodhaven Leland will be. So I'm not asking for any additional funding. And the stairs, the campus looks like it's pretty much on target to use up the vast majority of the funding and not over.
Great, thank you.
Jeremy.
Yeah, I just want to just sort of give a little more context to that answer. Yes, the library stairs would eat up all of those funds, but I'm sure the town campus folks could come up with other projects if provided other monies to do on the town campus. But the stairway, to complete the stairs, we have ample funds.
Okay, very good. All right, no other further questions or comments. We'll move right on to Farm Pond Stormwater. I think it's Sean again.
It is. So this turned into basically a design and permitting project. We hired a trusted consultant, Stantec, who has done a lot of work for the town over the years, especially with the environmental issues surrounding the landfill and stormwater and other issues and other projects down at Farm Pond. So we hired them. It was a natural fit to hire them to design the stairs and stormwater. And we presented that, I don't know, a couple of weeks ago. So that funding is basically capped out to cover that. We presented that to Concom in a hearing sometime last month. And they held the hearing. There's another hearing, I think next week. They continued it so we could do a site walk, and that'll probably get permitted, and then we can essentially go out to bid. We don't have funding for the construction at the moment. I think you guys have probably been updated that there's an earmark out there in the bond bill that's kind of going through its paces with money slated for the construction. So that's yet to be seen. But we're on target to use up that money and be successful getting the design through Concom and Mass DEP.
Okay, very good. Very good. All right, any questions, comments from the board or the public? Okay. Now let's revisit the I guess it'll just be the only one here that's looking for a different allocated. So what is the current status? We basically have 190,000 that's otherwise unallocated, correct? And was reserved. We kind of knew it might be reserved for this anyway. And you simply need a vote of the board to allocate said funding. Is that correct? Okay.
And that was my motion.
And there was some discussion about, is it all needed here? And I think the discussion was that, it's drawing such little water anyway. We'll probably have to do something with the grass. All right. You made a motion, Paul. I guess, is there any further discussion or is there a second?
Well, under discussion, I'd like to reemphasize what I think I've said before, which is the importance of recreation and athletic activities and getting people outdoors, both for our students in our schools, but also for the entire population. It's healthy. It's good for all of our residents. We might as well keep these fields available. There's a shortage of fields anyway. So we need this. So I'd urge supporting this.
All right. And I was making, go ahead, Jeff.
We make the motion for the dollar amount specific, though. Maybe you said it, and I've.
Yeah, it's for 190.
Okay.
190,000. And is that all the allocated funds?
Yes. Well, there's 5,000 they haven't spent. So
yeah, 500 left over. So Jeremy.
Yeah, Eric, there is actually an additional $30,000 that had been sort of set aside for future work at Farm Pond. But that's not enough to cover the entire construction. I think Sean's update mentioned it's in final permitting, but the estimated cost for the Farm Pond access and stormwater is about $200,000. You had identified another 30,000 possibly. So in addition to this 190 you're talking about, there's another 30,000 that's available for something.
But the 190 was something more or less we reserved in concept. We didn't actually officially vote on reserved in concept. I'd like to not exceed the 190. And we know, so I had a little resistance from this project before. I'll give my own opinion of it because I felt, as Stephen indicated, that they should go to town meeting. We should spend this on projects we had done. But we're kind of in it now, and we've spent this much. And I do think we should probably, I do support moving forward with this and allocating this 190. I don't support more than 190. Because that's what we did in concept before. I understand it's a tough locate, they're in a tough situation. I also understand that, ultimately 13 gallons a minute is not gonna make the impact that a lot of people were concerned about. And I think it will force them to do something additional, maybe with the soil treatment or something along those lines. That's kind of my belief. That if we're going to have like not supported this, we should have not supported it a long time ago. And now we're in this. We did give in concept the 190. Because I was kind of one of the more resistant people. I don't know if anyone else has any thoughts on this or any further discussion? Sean?
Well, it's to one of your comments. I would sit on the 30. I know you weren't
Yeah.
thinking about adding it to this, but I also wouldn't put it towards the farm pond as much as I want that project to go. I don't, like, we can't guarantee we can spend it. We could always turn around and spend it on trees in a day. So I would keep that reserved. I know everyone's anxious to get rid of it, but
I'll say I'm going to spend it on a vehicle or piece of equiment that we actually already approved the town meeting.
right,
That's what
right.
I'd like to
And we
spend
can
it
do that in a last minute if the heat's on to do that.
on.
But
So I'd
just
like
wanted
to spend on a piece of equipment.
just one addition to that, which is that if we don't spend the 30,000 and we spend the 190, there's still an additional $10,427.41 that's not allocated at all. So you add that to the 30,000, that's $40,000 that's available for us to spend. And we should spend that remaining $10,000, even though right now we have no applicants for it. If you don't spend it,
Yeah,
if
we're
you
not
don't
gonna-
commit it,
I mean, we could add it to the town center campus.
I'm not worried about that. Yeah.
I could spend that by coffee tomorrow.
Yeah,
I will ask Jeremy to help find equipment that's been approved by town meeting. It hasn't been purchased yet. And that's what I'm going to advocate for it to be spent on. Okay. We have a motion and a second. We have a second, right? For the 190K?
A second.
Did you second? All right. So, all in favor just for the 190. Stephen?
Aye.
Jeff?
Aye.
Marion?
Aye.
Paul?
aye.
I am I as well. All right.
Nice,
Very
Dave.
good.
Thank you.
And good luck with this project. Absolutely.
Thank you.
All right. So moving on now, we have my favorite agenda item. I almost moved this to the first, but I don't want everyone to fall asleep. Washington Maple Street Intersection Improvement Project. Talking about the Leland Monument relocation and the stamped concrete coloring in the pattern.
Do we have to do the appointments?
Yeah, I think the appointments are
Yes,
next.
we do.
Oh,
We
did I
have to
skip
do
it?
the
Oh,
appointments.
I went over. I saw them both. All right. Consideration of plumbing and gas inspector, our term to expire 2027. Do we do one at a time? We do it once.
Can I
What we
do one
here?
motion for everybody?
Go
Can I-
for it.
Can I move the appointment of, as listed in the agenda, the 3 appointments with the term as amended?
Sounds good to me. Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, all in favor, Stephen?
Aye.
Jeff?
Aye.
Marion?
Aye.
Paul?
Aye.
I am I as well. Very good. All right, now on to my favorite agenda item. The roundabout.
No.
Okay, is someone gonna talk to it, or do you want to go right into the concrete? I mean, obviously, and I will say that after 7 years, I made my first mistake applying to all, which people were on the board. So I took my email, included it in the background material, and I'm mentioning it at this meeting as well, so people can see my discussion of the background material. And to actually further cover myself, I will say what I said in that email right now. And that is, I don't really like either one. Not a big fan of stamp card, but I get it. It is what it is. I think the red fits more in an urban environment. You see reds like kind of like, it might work further in downtown. Like red might actually work in downtown Sherborn. It might work like in Natick, something like that. But I really don't like the gray because it doesn't look like what it's supposed to look like. The gray's supposed to mimic a cobblestone, and the red's supposed to mimic a brick. And bricks are cut nice at right angles, and they're cut very cleanly, and so it kind of looks like the stamped concrete. Whereas the gray's supposed to mimic cobblestones, which are notoriously uneven, and they're not cut perfectly square, and it doesn't look like that. It looks like linoleum. It looks like my kitchen from 1966, and I don't like the gray for that reason there. And I'll just be very frank about that. I didn't say that in my email about the linoleum, but I've thought about it today. And I would consider some other options as well. I request if we could do a tan markup. You sent me an email, Sean. I forgot to reply about what they did in Union Ave and Framingham. That actually was a bituminous asphalt that they put a layer of polymer on top of and then stamped that polymer. And that looks a little bit nicer in many ways there. So those are some of my thoughts. I see other people have thoughts well. So first I'm gonna recognize people who have their hand raised on board members, then I'll go outside the board. Paul, you had your hand raised first for a board member and you're muted.
Okay.
We got more opinions on this than we got on what Murchison's talk. Okay.
Right. There were two citizens who commented that I found very persuasive, Poe Putnam and Sarah Reggie. And they both were talking about the gray side of things rather than the brick side of things. But Poe went a little further and said that it was worth upgrading the gray to granite pavers. I don't know what the cost is, but I do know that Poe is an architect and an excellent guy. I served with him on the planning board. I would like to know if we could consider that other option of pavers as suggested by Poe Putnam.
So I do know that Sean has looked into that. I'd like to just table that for a minute and go back to it because I'm also on the same page there. So that's going to spark a larger discussion, and I want to hear from the other people who have their hand raised, if that's okay, Paul. Because I'm on board with you, Poe, on that, or some real cobblestone. But before we go off that, I'd like to hear from the other. Like I said,
Eric, is it okay if the planning board calls their meeting to order?
Oh, yes. Yes.
Sorry, thanks. I think you didn't know if we would have a quorum. We had posted when there was a discussion for input. So Addie Mae Weiss here, Chair of Planning Board, would like to call the Planning Board meeting to order. I believe I have Jim Garino and Frank Hoke and, I'm sorry, Jim Garino and Rob Wolf, I believe I saw. So is there anyone else that's here to call our meeting to order? I guess
Frank's here too.
It's Frank here. Okay.
Frank and second.
I don't know why I'm having a total brain freeze moment. Do we need to do a roll call vote to open our hearing? I mean, not a hearing, to open our section of the meeting? Yes, we do.
It's safer.
Okay. All right. Motion to open the meeting. Frank, can you second?
Second.
Okay. So roll call vote. Addie Mae Weiss, aye. Frank Hoke.
Aye.
Jim Garino.
Aye.
Rob Wolf.
Aye.
And Steph Harrison on.
I didn't see her.
Okay, so we're all set then. Planning board meeting's open. Thank you.
Okay, very good. Thank you. Keep your hand up if you want to be recognized for comments. But I am going to go to Jeff and then Stephen. I'm going to go to the board first.
Hang on, I need to mute her now. I definitely am not a fan of the red brick. I just think it's too much of a contrast. It felt like we were building Quincy Marketplace there or something like that. And so I like, of the two, I like the gray way better. And Sarah, I think it was Sarah Reggie or someone that made a comment about the brick, that they saw it somewhere else. And eventually the truck tires left large black streaks on the red brick finish. So I would not go for the red brick. If we just pick among these two, I strongly support the gray. But if we look at another option, or either another color that you mentioned, Eric, which I think Sean or someone, Jeremy, sent us a color palette that's available. And then I suspect, Paul, that the cost of the actual cobblestone will be expensive, but also the maintenance, because of water getting in the mortar and everything else, would make it be a maintenance nightmare. But I'll let Sean answer that one. Thank you.
And like I said, I want to kind of get everyone's comments, and then I think I want to hear from like the options from Sean, if that's okay. You know what I mean? I think I'll make up comments and opinions, and I would just like Sean to talk once or whatever. You know what I mean? At the end of all this. Okay, Stephen.
Yeah, so I don't actually feel super strongly about this, but I went out there and looked at them. I do think that from a distance, I like the red better. Close up, I like the gray better. For me, the main thing really is kind of like the safety issue. I think Jeff, maybe you just said that there's a big contrast. To me, that's a bonus, and that's the reason. That's the main advantage of the red, I think, is that it is a contrast. Yeah, I have maybe I have too much anxiety about people driving straight through this circle because they're not used to it being there. Or if people are under the influence or simply not paying attention. And I think that having something that visually is obviously a different color from the road that they're driving on is an advantage. How often are people actually going to be looking at it up close to see the detail of it, right? It's not a sidewalk. Like it's the center of a freaking traffic circle. So no one's going to look at it up close. So to me, that's the main thing, is that I like the contrast because it sets it apart from the asphalt that people are driving on.
I agree. Okay, I'll take now non-board members. I'm gonna take an order that I see them. It's just, the order is gonna be Addie, Frank, Zach, and Rob. Addie, did you have something you wanted to?
Yeah, I mean, I guess, I've been between planning board and also assisting with the funding with Complete Streets, been looking at roundabouts for the last, I feel like 3 or so years, and there's a lot out there. And I think the center of this, the apron doesn't necessarily, most aprons, a lot of them are that I've seen are just concrete ridged aprons, or they have to be mountable by trucks. So you want something durable. I've looked at the Norfolk one multiple times. I actually went out yesterday in person up close, and it's the mortar is crumbling. So the cobbles, while they sound nice in theory, they're fading away. And there'll be plenty of signage. There's no, most roundabouts that I've been seeing going through New Hampshire, going through Vermont, if they are brick, they're a faded brick. The apron is not the thing that you're going to, as a driver, be looking at to guide you around the roundabout. So I think having something that's soft and allows for what's in the middle and what's around the roundabout to be viewed is more important. So the stamped concrete doesn't allow weeds. We all know at the intersection by Pine Hill, the Elliott Street little circle there, all the weeds that come up through the brick. So yeah, that's my point.
I will add a quick comment to that. I mean, if this is done with, let's say, pavers or real cobblestones, it's going to have like several inches of concrete underneath it. Those were just the old-fashioned ones where you laid it on soil, laid on dirt, and weeds can come through. This is going to be something, because the way this roundabout is different than the ones in Norfolk. Norfolk, those cobblestones are really part of the driving surface. This needs to be driven on because 18-wheelers will hump the slope. We have a sloped granite curb there, and 18-wheelers will hump that every now and then, kind of go bloop on top of it, but it will not get the driving surface you see like in Norfolk. In Norfolk, it's that's basically at grade with a very slight slope up, which like a Honda Accord can drive on that one, and probably does drive on that one. This with the slope, it won't get as much. And like I said, it's gonna have, I don't know what it is, like 4 inches of concrete underneath it, so it can take those 18-wheelers. Frank, you're next.
Yes, thank you for allowing me to speak. Personally, I'm not really overly interested or worry so much about the color myself, but I did look up online what Massachusetts suggests. So I found the Mass DOT guidelines for roundabouts, and what they talk about is that apron is obviously, as was mentioned, is for truck tight turning radiuses. That's really what that is for. So it needs to be strong enough to be able to withstand the heavier trucks driving over that part of the road. So if the cobblestone can hold up to that, that's one way of dealing with it. But if not, then whatever we choose, it has to be strong enough to withstand the weight of the trucks. The secondary thing that you talked about was color. And though they didn't really force it one way or another, there was a suggestion in there that if it were red, that would indicate to automobiles to stay off of it because it's red versus gray, which would be a driving road type of color and wouldn't send that message. We wouldn't necessarily have a sign that said, do not drive on apron. Just there's enough other signs that are going to be had at a roundabout where that doesn't happen. So they talked about having the contrast in color, and they suggested red, but it wasn't really, a strong requirement that it had to be red. By the way, the roundabout that's closest to that particular roundabout is if you go down Maple and do the dogleg on the Whitney in Ashland, is the roundabout, and it has a red truck apron that's very similar to the one that Sean has shown. I personally like whether it be a real brick or a real cobblestone, but I'll let others decide that point. I just wanted to bring that up. And then another point, another topic, which I thought was part of this discussion too, and I see George Fisk here, and I don't know if that's the second part of our discussion for later, is that moving that obelisk to the center. So I have a discussion point on that. Should I do that now or should I wait till later?
You don't mind waiting, because I was going to hold that just a little bit separate, because I figured the color was going to be kind of its own standalone discussion for a bit, and then we'll talk about the obelisk. I think they're going to be pretty independent. If people want, you can kind of visualize it one or the other with the obelisk, but I think I would like to. I have a feeling the color's going to be a bit more polarizing. I'm pretty sure everyone's going to agree with the obelisk, and I think we're just going to fight over red and brick and new stuff for a good half hour now. Okay, Zachary. Are you there? Zach McBride?
Sorry, I can't take myself off camera. I can't put my camera on for some reason, but I just want to voice my opinion. I think that the gray looks better aesthetically, and I think over time it will wear better. I think if anyone's been to my property, it's obvious I would prefer real granite, but I do know that that's a maintenance potential issue for Sean, and so I'll defer to him on that. But I think the gray looks better than the red.
Okay, thank you. Robert Wolf.
Yeah, I think I'm also. I think both colors kind of look okay, but I think the gray looks more appropriate. It goes more in with the theme of things that you wouldn't want to use. You'd never want to use real bricks there, so why have fake brick, sort of. But I do also. I see the point that Steve and Frank made about the red is maybe more visible and more of a deterrent. I thought about that, but I figured, it's raised. It's a different color from the pavement around it, so I'm not too worried about that. But either one's fine with me.
I do want to comment because it was actually in my email, so I'll also cover myself. I'll state this that I accidentally sent to everyone, is that I do think the asphalt will fade to actually match this the gray stamped concrete. So asphalt starts black, and in 2 years it's gray. Do you know what I mean? That's how all asphalt is. I do think it'll weather to a gray that'll match it too much. That's my thought. I mean, look at any road in town, and that's the color that the cul-de-sac or the roundabout will eventually end up at. Because I do like the contrast. I mean, that's just the functional part of the contrast. Jim Garino?
Yeah, I think I have a little bit of experience using this product on different projects. And, I think the red doesn't really look good. I think the gray looks nice. But I agree with Eddie May. I think the emphasis should be placed on what's going into the center. Now, I have experience with a tan color, which looks attractive, but any of the light colors will show tire marks, and that became obvious afterwards. And I would just again emphasize that the attention should be what's happening in the center.
Yep, I agree. And well, I don't agree. I like the red, but oh, sorry, touch. In my email, I actually asked if we could get a mock-up of a brown or a tan. Actually, a brown or a tan would actually go well there. But I think there's other options. So if it's okay, I'm gonna ask Sean to speak a little bit. I think he's done a little bit of homework and some other options and just some thoughts on this in general.
Thanks. I first a couple comments to some of the other comments. Mass DOT does leave it pretty general that it should just contrast. And I would point out, none of the engineers nor Mass DOT say it should contrast to the point where that's making it more safe for people not smashing into the center, or it would be safety yellow. And I don't think anyone wants that. That's what signs and line painting are for, is to delineate. So if you picture the nighttime person that might be impaired that's heading towards that roundabout, they're never going to see the red. They may or may not see the signs. They're probably going to see the obelisk before they hit it. But the color of the concrete we should not make a decision based on safety. And speaking of that, I need to remind everyone, this is a small roundabout and roundabout standards. That's why we call it a roundabout, not a rotary. Most trucks are going to go over that, more so than Ashland. And Sarah did a nice job of going to Ashland and making mention of the skid marks across. There's actually a couple of geometry reasons why that's happened in Ashland, but a lot of truck traffic is going to go over this, and that beats up any surface. More than people realize, because the rear tires are going to scrub all the way around the thing. They're not always going to leave black marks, but they do wear. So obviously the lighter colors are going to show that more. It's probably no secret that I don't like the red. I think I pointed that out to most people. I don't think it belongs there. It might belong downtown, but it definitely doesn't belong there. Anyone that's looked at it understands it looks nothing like what Rico Daramo and his brother Vinny did down at the set of lights. And that has withstood the test of time because nobody drives over that. If trucks were driving over those bricks, they would have destroyed it. Me and my guys are probably the only ones that drive on it when we're plowing. And well, that's most of it. And I would also say it's unfortunate that the timing is what it is. In the specs, we had anticipated having these mock-ups a full month before they got poured. And I think I did mention that, the color's going to change. If I could have, I would have kept them covered and not let anyone see them for the first week or two, because concrete never looks the same the second week as it did the first week. It's already changing, and there's a decent contrast right now between the wide granite and the band versus the gray. That in itself is going to leave a contrast, because you're never going to see this concrete up against the asphalt, because the granite is lighter, and it'll stay. It's not really going to weather much. It may get some skid marks on it, but it's not going to weather much. It'll stay lighter than the concrete. We did start looking into other surfaces. There's really not many in New England that we're finding. There is some specs out there. Any way you look at it, there's an 8-inch slab that right now is designed to be an 8-inch slab with stamp and some steel dowels between the joints. That's what is needed for the structure. If we were to put pavers, that slab would probably get pushed down and then put the pavers in them. But it would not come without some maintenance, which is not something we really want to invite. Over time, weeds would still grow in, because dirt and everything else would get into it. Weeds would come up out of it. Addie Mae went over to, again, it's a good comparison and not an exact comparison. Norfolk, you can tell they've done work over the years to keep those together. We would need to do that, because the trucks are going to beat it up, and I'll be riding around the thing in circles in the winter, plowing it, scraping it with cutting edges, and throwing salt on it to keep it from freezing up. So it's not really a good design to add multiple layers of hard surface and then allow water to get in and freeze. It'll eventually fail. So I would hesitate against it. And I would say, as far as the schedule, one, people keep congratulating me because we're ahead of schedule. We're not ahead of schedule. We might be on schedule. A decision tonight could probably back that right up to not even being on schedule. currently the pave date is the 9th. We have to put this concrete down before we put the asphalt down. So if we push this out, if we ask for a mock-up, we're gonna lose that pave date. I don't know that we could even get a mock-up in time. I guess we could probably get one next week, and then we'd need to wait another week to look at it. So I don't really think that's an option. If the board voted to push to look at other specifications, me and Jeremy would move as fast as we could on that. But it needs to go through the engineers on record and then get priced out. That would probably push the project back a couple weeks. Again, there is time to do it, but there's always a dance. As soon as you start pushing things out, we could get our backs against the wall at the end of August and wish we had it finished.
So now what Poe mentioned with the granite paver, is that essentially the same thing as cobblestones?
I think so. I mean, I didn't get a chance to sit with Poe after he kind of made those comments. I solicited that. I talked to him before we started. I think he was slightly confused on the nature of what that apron is, because he also mentioned some grass, or even just a broom finish. I suspect he meant either granite pavers or cobbles.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I'll just speak my opinion real quick. I mean, I still like a real paver or cobbles. I do. And I think if you put enough concrete underneath it, it'll stand up fine. I get it, but there's a reason they don't, in the historic district, they don't let you put vinyl siding on the side of a house. Wood actually takes more maintenance, and wood looks a lot nicer and looks more authentic. And I just have that aesthetic side of things on this here. If we choose tonight not to go forward with like a paver or cobblestone or something like that, I urge the board to request a mock-up of a brown or a tan brick. I asked for it in my email. It's something that I understand it might put us a little behind, but I mean, this is going to be here past like our grandkids' lifetimes. You know what I mean? This is going to be here a long time, and I would hate to make such a permanent decision based on like, oh no, we're going to be 2 weeks late or something like that. Marion, you had hand raised.
Right, I figured everybody else has weighed in, I might as well too. My initial response was, yeah, the red, it would kind of look like town hall, like red brick. Well, that red doesn't look like town hall at all. And over time, I really am not gonna like that red. The gray is much more elegant. I think as Sean mentioned, the white granite edge gives a visual signal. And if you're drunk, you're probably going to drive over it anyway, so it doesn't matter. As far as papers go, or a different color goes, I'd sort of, I'm curious about what a tan might look like, but I'm not sure that would be enough of a contrast either. So I don't feel terribly strongly about it, except I really don't like the red.
And with the tan, I think it's worth taking a look, to be honest with you, because it's not. Yes, it's somewhat of a contrast. I just think the gray, so much doesn't look like what's supposed to look like. It looks fake. I don't like the fake look, or at least a tan will look like a tan brick. A tan brick is a real thing. It's what it's supposed to mimic. Do you know what I mean? And it fits well, I think, with the overall look of things. And I think when you make a concrete state, with the square nature, the perfect nature of it, it'll look more like a tan brick versus the fake linoleum cobblestones. Okay. So all that being said, where do we stand on this? Yeah, Paul.
I gather from what Sean said that he hasn't really sat down with Poe Putnam, and maybe hasn't even seen his email. Would it make sense to give Sean an opportunity to talk to Poe directly, and I'll certainly forward the email to Sean, and have him price it out if it can be done without killing the project with expense. That's one thing, but if it's going to turn out to be very expensive and problematic, that's a different thing. So maybe it needs
it's like so hard.
I don't
So-
know.
Go ahead, Paul. I found out who's doing. I muted him. Go ahead.
So I'm suggesting that we give Sean another week till our first meeting in August and make the decision then.
I mean, I don't mind. I'm not looking to unnecessarily delay this, and I don't mind if it's talk. But what I would like is, if contemporaneously we ask him to make a brown or a tan mock-up. I think I don't know what other people's thoughts are. I seem to be the only one saying that. Does anyone else have any thoughts on what either Paul or I are talking about from the board?
I do.
Yeah, Stephen.
Well, I guess I have one question. Besides the expense, I would imagine that laying down actual pavers or cobbles would also take longer, but I don't know. I don't know if that's accurate or not. Me personally, I'm okay enough with the gray that I'm kind of like, there seems to be generally maybe not a strong consensus, but like a movement towards the gray, and I would be fine with that. I actually am concerned about the timing. I think it's pretty important that this be finished before the school year starts. And I don't know, in terms of timing, Sean, like if we spend another 2 weeks working on this, how much risk is there that this is not done before the school year starts?
Yeah, you mind if I respond to that?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, good.
Maybe I wasn't clear. I've already instructed the contractor to rip those mock-ups out of the circle tomorrow and start prepping. The concrete was to be poured next week because the asphalt was to go down on the 9th. If I tell the contractor tomorrow to make a new mock-up next week, we're going to lose the pave date of the 9th. I don't know what the next pave date is, but it's going to at least be a week later. And then if we tell them, hey, I don't actually have engineering specs to give you for someone said cobble, we're likely not going to finish before the end of school. I mean, it could potentially happen, but I don't even have engineering specs to give them to even start pricing. It's not really I mean, there is a cost issue. We're not over budget yet. And I don't think that would push us completely through the contingency, but I think it would likely push us through August. If we do that, we've been presenting this as a stamped concrete, and we're not exactly all happy with the look, but there was a reason, and the reason is there's about 9,000 cars a day that go through that intersection. A fair amount of them are trucks, and they're going to destroy anything we put in there that's not pretty robust. And all the engineers that you ask would say it should be poured concrete, either stamped or broom finish. Again, there's no one on here that likes natural finishes more than me. And if the board instructed me to do it, I'd do it. I would caution we're gonna push ourselves against that deadline, regardless of cost. I do, and Paul, I understand. I did get Poe's email. He crossed a few things in there, but I get the gist of what he's looking for. He would always like a natural stone, obviously. I think most of us would.
So how about do we do a double motion? So what if I move that we approve the gray pavers, but have you price out the natural look, and and send that to the select board, because we can always have a meeting on 48 hours notice. So then you have the approval to go forward, but you are giving an opportunity at least to see if the other thing is doable. We don't have to wait till our next meeting. We can do a meeting next week.
Let me grab Marianne with her hand raised here while Sean thinks about that. Let me grab him. Good,
Yeah,
Mary.
Paul, I think, just to be sure, I'm pretty sure you meant to say, you move that we tentatively approve the gray stamped concrete. It's
Yes.
not papers. Yeah.
Yes, that's what I meant to say. Thank you.
Before I collect that, before I make that finalized, there's no one supporting my desire for a brown mock-up. You just don't think it'll look good? Go ahead, Jeff. You're smiling.
I
I'll make
think
it
it'll
talk.
look good. I just don't think we have the time to do it.
I just don't think. I mean, we could meet within 48 hours. I'd hate like not do something this permanent just because like we're pushed up against it. 'Cause it's gonna be
I'm
there
not
forever.
disagreeing with you. I would go with that if you felt it, but I think we can just base it on the color samples. You know, you buy paint at Home Depot for your wall. We can just look at the samples and decide that the gray is too different and pick another color and not have to make a mock-up is what I'm saying.
All right, Sean, what do you have to say?
Since you asked about tan, I'll throw it out there. Several people have warned against just adding another color in the palette that's not up there. There's black, there's already gray.
Yeah.
Tan is similar to red. You're just adding a color that doesn't exist on that in that landscape at all.
Mhm.
And I'm worried about
Yeah.
the fading of the tan, much like the
Yeah.
red will go to pink.
When the plants that are planted inside die off, it'll be tan. Sam?
Yeah, I just wanted to reinforce something that Sean said, and that is that poured concrete is really the way to go for this. If you tried to mortar any kind of granite pavers or any other kind of stone on top of a concrete base and have heavy trucks run across it, it's going to tear it up completely, and then we're going to have stones falling out of place, and it's going to be a lot of repair. And I know that as everyone says, natural granite looks great, or pavers might look great, but really it's the stamped concrete is really what you want to do if you want something that's going to be durable.
Yeah, I think we're sold on that. I don't think we're going to consider the natural at this point. I'm just seeing how much if there's any further momentum toward my desire for a brown or a tan.
Before we
It's
do,
just
I
dying
would
to concrete.
ask Sam if he had a color preference. You're muted, Sam. You're muted.
I think I was in favor of the gray. One of my concerns is that I've seen red pavers like that fade over time and kind of become a little bit of a salmon pinkish color. Not always the most attractive. I couldn't tell you that would happen with this particular application or not, but I have seen that in the past, and I think gray will just weather a lot better. Plus, which something else is that I think that we haven't talked about it very much, but the monument is actually going to go a lot better with the gray than it would with the red brick. I think it's all going to look very classy together.
Okay, that's a perfect shift while people are thinking. Let's talk about the monument now. Let's shift to that one.
Oh, you don't want to vote on the color first?
Let's do it after the monument.
Okay.
I have a feeling, yeah. I'm gonna let people think. I'm getting a lot of dead air, so I'm gonna figure because then we're gonna visualize the monument with the thing and so on like that. Is George speaking to that, or Sean, or Jeremy? Who's speaking to the monument? And I just want to make a quick comment that I've grown up in town. My family's lived in town for almost 100 years, and I had no idea this monument existed until like last week. That's all I wanted to say.
One quick point is I have the photo up if you need it. I assume George has a photo, but I have a photo up that I could share.
You see it in Google Street View even.
Well,
yeah, if someone wants to share it, especially if you're a co-host, you're a co-host, yeah, go ahead and share, Jeff, if you don't mind. Because
I was going to let George may have photos to show.
No, I'm not showing any photos. You're welcome to show them. I just thought it sounds to me as though all of you seem to know a fair amount about this already. So we'll see. I just thought I would give I think maybe a brief background on this, if I may. And that is that I've grown up in Sherborn too. I've been a lifetime member of the Unitarian Church. I've served on many of their committees, one of which was the Buildings and Grounds Committee. And I'm very familiar with that monument. And I also at one time chaired the Historic District Commission. And and one of the things that we have touched upon years ago was the fact that this monument has been around a long time, but very, very few people know about it, what it is, where it is, what it looks like, including members of the church. It's really located really off to the side of the property. Just to tell you a little bit about it, the monument is quite handsome. It's an obelisk on some substantial granite stone. It was erected in 1847. and placed in the current location in honor of a fellow by the name of Henry Leland, who was one of our earliest settlers in Sherborn. Actually, it was interesting. The Leland family, when they had this done, had an arrangement with the church to allow them to place the monument there for the fee of $10. So the church has their $10. The monument's been there since. I've often thought if there was an opportunity to showcase that monument, that we should move forward with it. Well, of course, here's the opportunity. It's a handsome piece. I've had a vote of it does not belong to the church. And the feeling now is that it really belongs to the town. And there was a survey done back in '81 by the Historic Commission. And this was one of the items that was part of the survey. And I'm happy to share with that if you haven't seen it. Certainly, the Historic Commission has it. There's a wonderful write-up about it. I've also got some serious documentation that none other than Betsy Johnson has done for me on this, and it's really a terrific background. But when it was established in 1847, it is believed that approximately 50% of the population descended from Henry Leland. So that's why they were doing all of this. Anyway, with the roundabout construction, I started to approach people about the notion of picking it up and moving it and placing it as the centerpiece. One, to give it recognition, two, to make that particular area in town, give it some character, give it some history that it doesn't currently have. That's it right there. Thank you. And that's an older photograph because what's happened is the tree limbs have kind of grown around it now. And although you can't see it, on 3 sides of the obelisk, there is etched into the stone the history and the reason for the stone. We think it would be a very attractive piece to move to the center of the roundabout. And one of the things that we thought was important was to touch base with any of with the senior Leland in Sherborn, that being Polly Mayer, Polly Leland Mayer, who I think many of you know. And I approached her son, Rich Robinson. And Richard is very supportive, and he has spoken with his mother, who doesn't remember the monument, but she thinks it's a great idea. And one of the things that was requested, and I think is another good idea, and that is we don't want people walking out into the center of the roundabout to read what's there, and it is a little difficult to read now anyway. We intend to have a bronze plaque made. I would run it by the Historic District Commission for the language, and it would be placed on the sidewalk off to the side of the roundabout. The exact location we can determine later. One of the things that was clear is that the monument sits in the historic district, as does the roundabout. And so we did have a meeting with the Historic District Commission the other evening, a nice discussion about it. We touched upon the color of the faux brick, I'll call it, but we really didn't focus on that. And I would say if I thought about what people had said about that, I think the sentiment was as between the red and the gray seemed to be winning out. But again, we didn't really focus on that aspect of it. One of the things that was requested by the church and the church board, as well as the trust that holds the property, has voted to support the move, with the proviso that they asked that the town, and I've talked to Sean about this, if there's a foundation under it, that foundation be removed and that soil be brought in and have it seeded so it just reverts to lawn. And I don't think that's an unreasonable request, and I think it's fairly simple to do and not terribly expensive. So we're looking for your support of this. I can tell you I have spoken over the last month or so to a lot of people, and I have yet to find anybody who who is opposed to it. And in fact, most people are enthusiastic and think it's a wonderful way to pay tribute not only to one of Sherborn's earliest families, but also to really provide that new roundabout with some real history and character. So that's my story in a nutshell, and I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
All right, normally I take the board first, but Sean might have information that's relative to Stephen's question. So I'll do Sean, then Stephen.
I do real brief. I believe you were copied on most of them. Just information from the engineers. But the first thing Jeremy did once this came in was send this off to the engineers to basically get their blessing to make sure we weren't violating any roundabout standards. And they actually came back and basically supported it as it doesn't really degrade the sight lines across the roundabout, and that we do have the opportunity to uplight it, which will actually help people recognize that it's there and that the roundabout is there, and it'll look great. So it was endorsed by the engineers. Kind of, they have a roundabout expert that reviewed it.
So I have a comment about the uplighting, if I could.
Okay, if it's okay, I do want to respect the order we're doing this. Stephen, are you okay if I take Paul?
Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah, okay, Paul, go ahead.
So there's a considerable movement among most of my municipalities to prohibit uplighting, in part because it interferes with the view of the sky. It is a waste of power resources. It's distracting to wildlife and to insects, and all there's a whole litany of things. There's a whole movement called dark skies that advocates and agitates for communities to actually pass bylaws prohibiting uplighting anywhere in the town. So I don't think we as a government should be uplighting anything. If anything, it should be downlit or side lit, but not uplighting.
Okay. What's that? I don't think we have to make a decision on that tonight. I knew to Sean very wisely already installed conduit there, so it'd be all ready to pave over, and the option's always there. But I don't know if that's quite. I don't know if we have to decide that tonight. Stephen.
I guess my role tonight is going to be devil's advocate, so I'm going to be devil's advocate on this as well. I think that it looks great. I think it would look really quite perfect in the middle of the roundabout. But again, I have significant safety concerns, not necessarily, I mean, yes, safety of people driving into it, but safety of the monument itself, right? I think there was some national expert that had these various criteria on what are good things to put in the middle of a roundabout, and one of the things was, oh, does it have historic value, is it replaceable? And this is an the obelisk itself is you could make another obelisk, but it wouldn't have the same historical value, obviously. So I would say that this qualifies as effectively irreplaceable, right? And I know it's probably rare that anyone might go plowing straight through the middle of this, right? But it only takes one, right? It just takes one person, or maybe one big car carrier just cuts a little too close. And I just worry that a car is going to run into it at some point, and that gives me concern. I do like the idea of there being a plaque out on the sidewalk, so that people don't have to walk up to it to look at it. But, some people may still see the fact that there is an inscription on it and may want to go right up to it and look at it, right? And I worry about the safety of anybody who chooses to do so. One thing that I thought about is and this may tie into the sort of beautification of the town campus project. I don't know, Sam might have thoughts on this, but I believe that over on the Caustic property, there might be some sort of long-term plans to do some work there and maybe put up a gazebo or something. But there's a lot of space there that we could move the monument to that location where it would be much more accessible for pedestrians and people get right up close to it, and it wouldn't be in danger essentially. So again, I believe that the overall, the size, the shape, the everything, it is the perfect thing to go in the center. I just worry about the fact that some car drives into it and now this thing is gone, and it's irreplaceable. So that's my only thought.
Car or truck, I can certainly see that. We could put a couple boulders in the roundabout to kind of protect it. Paul, you got a comment?
No, but since you called on me, in
You left your
Nantucket,
hand up from before. I got tricked
yeah,
by that. Okay,
but
you
in
good.
Nantucket we had this historic water trough and water fountain in the middle of a street, and it has been demolished 3 times in its history by vehicles hitting it. And to find a craftsman who could replace it has always been a big deal, because it's a work of art, not just a historic horse watering spot. But they did it. They were able to replace it. And it's now up again at the location that it's supposed to be. So the points that Stephen is making is actually proven to be true in other communities.
All right, thank you. Jim.
Yeah, I was gonna say, let me put my hand down. I was thinking about this since we discussed it the other night at historical, and I think the original plan was to place it at grade, but I think to protect it and to offer some visual enhancements, I think placing it on a plinth or base would be not only handsome but offer that protection at the same time. But that would have to be designed and might offer a longer installation period.
And I do think that this could actually be placed after the rotary is active. You just do it at night sometime or something like that. Wouldn't be the worst thing in the world. Yeah, I don't think this has to be in place before the school starts or whatever. But you're talking like a good big like 3-foot granite base type of thing where it
Yeah,
just,
it would,
the car. Yeah.
sorry, it would offer more prominence, and again, offer protection if it were a solid material.
Okay.
Whether it's
Sean, you're next.
I don't know if you want to pull that picture back up. The bottom of the monument actually is a large piece of granite. And to Jim's comment, I actually was considering lifting it some above the plane of the granite circle. So each one of those blocks is a separate piece of granite. So odds are, if a car hit that bottom piece of granite, at least the upper 9-foot piece is going to lay back on the car, and the car's going to do a nice job cushioning it. If they don't knock it forward, if they knock it forward, it'll fall in the circle. If they drive under it, it'll fall back on their car and they'll cushion it. If we were to put it on another granite block, they still could clear it. It depends how fast they're going. We can't really predict how fast someone's going to clear through the island if they actually decide to do so. Remember, they're going to hit the splitter island and rip the frame of their car out first. So if they somehow get airborne, I'm not sure what'll happen. We can't really predict that. What I was going to ask is if we choose to move it, I think the town should put it on its insurance policy. We have several other things that we have on our insurance rider, like the monuments out at the split, the memory statue, and others. We should probably, this should be insured if it's a town piece. And although it's the original that was built in 1847, it could, with relative ease, it could be remade if it was destroyed. Odds are if a car hits it, they're still going to be on scene, so we'll know who hit it, go after their insurance company to get the funding to fix it.
Yeah, good point. All right, who's next here? Jeff, you're next.
Yeah, actually, just reacting to Steve's comment, because, you know, I like the idea of it being in the roundabout, but I went up and read it in detail. You know, Henry Leland moved to Sherborn from England in 1651. So it was not, his relatives didn't build the monument until 200 years later. But I actually enjoyed going up and reading. It's the reason you can't read it from afar is just etched into the stone, and it's not erased anything you can read. But it would be a bit of a loss not to be able to go up close and read all the writing on. It's on 3 of the 4 sides, I think, have writing on it.
Yeah, no, I read it as well. It was interesting. Year before we're considered settled, actually.
Yep.
So basically, just to summarize what you're saying that it might have too much value to be there, or too much, like, people might want to read it, just as Stephen indicated. Okay.
Yeah, I'm just torn now. Stephen made a good point. It's not that I don't like it in the roundabout, but I think we'll either have people getting hit by trucks, or we just won't be able to have people read the actual inscription. So
yeah, I don't know either, to be honest with you. Maybe they'll miss it because of the red brick. They'll see it quickly.
Maybe we can
Zach.
maybe we can have a replica made. You know how like Michelangelo's David, like the real one is inside and protected, and then there's a replica out where it used to be, you know?
Yeah.
We'll just get a replica obelisk and put it there in the center.
Important concrete. Zach, you had something?
I was just gonna say,
Muted.
I think George's proposal. I support George's proposal. I think it's a very appropriate and creative idea, and I think it would add some visual interest and frankly, I think a vertical, sort of vertical obstacle in the middle of the roundabout might actually be a positive safety attribute versus just sort of, low curbing. So I actually think that some minor lighting and a bit of a more visual obstacle actually might be more of a safety benefit than not. But definitely support George's proposal. And I agree.
Also,
And I want to just echo Sean's sentiments. I don't think it's that complicated to replace should something unfortunate happen. And so I do. And I think we should add it to the town's rider. So.
I know someone else called things I'm joking. I'm kind of not. If we put like 4 boulders around it or something like that is also.
Yeah, I've got plenty of extra blocks you guys can grab. So just let me know if you want any.
Frank.
So with Sean discussing the line of sight issue, that was one of my biggest concerns and issues with that. But it is pretty narrow as you're moving up, and even at the base is, at the base of the obelisk beginning is not that wide. So I presume that even if it were raised, that would still provide a decent line of sight. So with that off the table, I think it would look nice in the center of there. And I agree that whether it's not the apron, but whatever the collar is called, that's around that center section, being high enough and then supported with some extra boulders to provide that extra protection, that I think it would be an ideal location for it.
Okay, good. And then and George, the proponent of this.
Yes.
Go ahead, George.
So one of the things that just as an add-on is if it's to be moved, which I hope it is, to the center of the roundabout, I think we need to be, and Sean and I've talked about this, we need to be very careful about how that's done, how it was constructed in the first place. And so I am getting in touch with a friend who recently retired as head of buildings and grounds at Mount Auburn Cemetery to make sure that, any issue that we're running into, that we know that and address that in advance. I would say that the number of people with whom I've spoken about this, the enthusiasm that it has engendered, It's just been really overwhelming to me. This I have to say, I understand the concerns, but I think this is a way to do something that for many people is rather uplifting to see something done here that really gives a little character to an area that otherwise is lacking that. That it is exposing more people to a part of the history of the town that they otherwise would not have. And the notion of having a bronze plaque off to the side is certainly gives people the opportunity to read what this is all about. Having a monument in the center of a roundabout is not a new idea. I've seen it in many other locations, and I mean that it's just not uncommon. It's not common either because there aren't that many roundabouts in the area. But I just think it would be a wonderful addition, especially this year, the 350th anniversary, to be doing some really positive kinds of things. And I think it would be so well received. And I also think it lends some value of safety, frankly. People aren't necessarily going to see there's a roundabout, but it's going to become fairly apparent if there's an obstacle right smack in the middle of it. So I think I just hope that you really are supportive of this and that we can take some action. There's been so much support otherwise. I think it would be a shame to lose this opportunity.
And I agree. I'll second the safety issue there as well, or especially worried about people speeding or impaired or whatever. This will make it very visible. It will. It'll when you come up. One thing I've always been worried about this roundabout is actually driving toward Holliston from downtown is coming up that hill, and there's some sightline issues there, and I think something like this will actually grab your eyes pretty quickly there. Oh, we suddenly have 4 more people that want to talk. All right. I'm gonna ask people to be a little respectful of time because we are just running a little bit long. If you're gonna say something that's already been said, just be cognizant of that. Paul, go ahead.
I wanted to make a motion to approve the.
Okay, there's a motion on the floor.
What's the thing it's called? Obelisk.
Move the obelisk to the center of the thing. Yeah. Okay, I get
Yes.
it. I get it.
All
right.
I'll second the motion.
I'm not gonna collect the vote yet because we still have hands raised. Marion, that's something.
I was going to make the motion.
Okay. And the only other thing I was going to add to it is I appreciate the fact that if this gets hit, let's by a truck, it could damage it. It could damage it. This historic 200-year piece. But as it is now, it's just being unappreciated. So it's kind of balanced. Unless we have like a better idea where to put it, this kind of makes sense to me. Do you know what I mean? Because that's where I balance the whole thing. Like I said, my family's been in town for almost 100 years, not as long as Leland and definitely not as long as George Fisk, and they were into the history of Sherborn, but yet I never knew this existed. So it's one of those things where it's like, do you leave it as it is as unappreciated, or put it somewhere where it's kind of appreciated but yet at risk? And that's unless we have another one for it. I was saying Paul's just got his hand kept up the whole time.
Yeah.
So that's my thoughts with it. I lowered it, Paul.
Okay. Sorry.
Eric, what about putting it on the Caustic property next to Town Hall?
Are we
There's
gonna
be a little park? We're gonna have little walkways, a gazebo. There could be an obelisk.
Any thoughts on that from the board?
We could use that unspent ARPA money.
What? Yeah, George.
You're starting from scratch. You need to go through all the approval process again, which isn't the end of the world, but you're going to have to go through. I think you need to go back to the church because the votes they took were based upon the plan that I put forward. And that's also true with the Historic District Commission. And I think many others, but that's your call. But I think what I've done is put forward what I think is really the most appropriate location for the monument, and I would just consider that. Hope that you would consider that the direction we should be going.
Okay. All right. Yeah, Jim.
Yeah, again, I would just support the location in the center of the Rotary as well. I think it's, as an architectural gesture, it's it's very nice and very European actually, but I would support locating it in the center of the island.
I mean, so Stephen, would you want to shepherd the process on the caustic property? I mean, I'm trying to avoid-
ultimately, I'm not going to go against George Fisk. I'm just kind of I'm being devil's advocate, throwing some other ideas out there. I mean, I think that an exact same equal size and shape obelisk there is perfect, you know, and if George Fisk and the historic district and everybody else feels that actually putting this actual obelisk there is appropriate and they're not concerned about the risk to the monument, then, you know, again, I'm not going to go against George Fisk on this. I'm just kind of throwing some other ideas out there because, you know, just I see some concerns with placing it there in danger. But yeah.
I've changed my mind.
All right, so we have a motion and a second to place it in the you know, I always go to Stephen first because he's what do you call, vice chair, but because he's a little conflicted, I'll go to the others first. Jeff, how do you vote on this?
Aye.
Marion?
Aye.
Paul?
I made the motion. Aye.
Okay, well, I made motions and voted against them. I am aye as well. And how about Stephen? How do you vote?
I'll vote aye.
All right. All right, back to our pavers now.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, George, for shepherding us through. Absolutely.
Thank you.
So I'm sharing these are pictures of our pavers. We have the blood red brick and the gray linoleum. So,
So could I make a motion at this point?
yeah, why not?
So based on Sean's statements about pavers and all of that, I move that we use the stamped gray concrete.
All right, do I have a second?
I'll second that motion.
I'm sitting here visualizing. I'm sitting here visualizing this. No one wants to consider a hand mock-up? You say no if you don't want to consider it.
I do not.
No.
All right. All right, Marion, you have your hand raised?
Yeah, I was going to second once again, or make the motion. I think we've had a really thorough discussion and I am ready to vote.
All right, all in favor of the gray, Stephen,
Aye.
Jeff,
Aye.
Marianne,
Aye.
Paul,
Aye.
and I'm just gonna do a token abstain. I'm gonna do abstain, but I don't think we have enough good information before us, and it's too permanent a decision. So I almost voted no, but I'll just do an not abstain. It abstains when you actually withdraw. I'll do abstain just because I think it's enough information to vote.
Yeah.
So there you go. 401. Okay. All that being said, appointments, Washington Maple, number 7, Charlesville Public
Actually,
Health
can
District.
we, Eric, sorry, can we close the planning board
Yes, absolutely.
meeting?
Yep, planning board,
We were
please
just-
close.
Take a vote.
So do we don't need to vote, planning board, do,
Yeah, to close the meeting, you do.
yeah, to close the meeting, yes, sorry, and the color, no, I think we added our 2 cents. So vote to close the meeting, motion to close the meeting.
Second.
Thanks, Frank. All right, all in favor of closing the meeting? Addie Mae Weiss is aye. Frank Hoke,
Aye.
Rob Wolf,
Aye.
Jim Garino.
Aye.
All right, thank you, everyone. Planning board's closed.
Okay, thank you. Okay, now moving on. Charles River IMA, who's speaking to that?
I
that
can do
Jeremy?
that, Eric. Thank you. The board will recall a bit over a year ago, we started talking about shared services with the region, the towns including Needham, Medfield, Dover, and Sherborn, to take advantage of some state funding for shared public health services. A bit over a year ago, the select board and the Board of Health agreed to enter an MOU to start to formalize this region. Now the year in, to maintain the state grants for the shared services, the state would like us to move forward with an IMA, a more formal agreement. That IMA has been developed by the town councils of Needham and has been reviewed actually based on a template used for other regional health districts. Needham's town council did the initial review, and then the councils of Medfield, Dover, and Sherborn also have reviewed the agreement, the IMA. It's in your packet. The Board of Health last week voted to endorse the IMA, and now it's being brought to the select board for your endorsement. I think what you'll need to do, should you wish to move forward with this, is to authorize the chair to sign on behalf of the board.
So moved. To authorize the chair to sign on behalf of the board. And I'll say I also reviewed the agreement, and it's fine from a legal point of view and from a policy point of view. It's actually a good idea.
Okay, Marion?
I agree. I read the whole thing and I think it looks really good. They've covered all the bases and I'm totally in favor.
All right, very good. So was that a second, Marion? Was that a move?
Yeah.
Okay.
I'll make that a second. If it was moved, I'll second.
All right. All in favor, Stephen?
Aye.
Jeff?
Aye.
Marion?
Aye.
Paul?
Aye.
I might as well. Very good.
Thank you.
Next up, consideration of use of farm pond for Sherborn and Metco families. Marianne, are you speaking on this one?
I am. You know, this arose because of a conversation I had with one of the Metco coordinators for Sherborn. And in the course of that conversation, she said that they had a hope that the town could somehow give Metco families an opportunity to use town farm pond during the summer. And I picked up on that and asked her to tell me a lot more about it, which she did. And it seemed to me just a really good idea. These Metco children are enrolled usually in kindergarten or first grade. They go all the way through school with their peers through elementary, middle, and high school. It makes a lot of sense to me that the children and their families should have access to farm pond, just like the people in Sherborn do. I know there is a mechanism whereby out-of-towners can enter a lottery, which really is not appropriate for this. Or if they do get out-of-town access, there's quite a hefty fee for it. I forget exactly what it is. It's somewhere between $100 and $300. If Jeannie's here, she can speak to that. But
it's 300, Marion.
Yeah, 300. I think that if we're going to do this for the limited number of families that would be involved, that it doesn't make sense to charge them $300. They've been taken into the school system, and I think that the town should extend an invitation to give them a farm pond sticker for the years that their kids are in school. And the total number of families involved is not that big. Currently, there are 14 Metco kids in Pine Hill School. I think that represents, excuse me, 12 or 13 families because some have more than one child in school. And there's another 10 or so in middle and high school that have come up through Pine Hill, most of them, and now are finishing their education in Sherborn. So basically, I'm proposing that we somehow give access to farm pond to Metco families to the extent that we know who they are. In September, there will be new ones entering Pine Hill. We don't know who they are yet, but those that have been in Metco currently or in the preceding year, I think should have access to farm pond if they want it. And that simply means that they, excuse me, they should be given a farm pond sticker that is attached to a car, a particular license plate, just like ours are. And that they should have access to this terrific environmental resource that we have. It's
Good.
not that many
I-
Polish families.
I certainly support this. I think there's almost no reason not to. Whatever. I have one, like like anything else, is unintended consequences and so on. So there's Sherborn Metco kids that go up through high school. Then there's Dover Metco kids that go up, and suddenly they're Dover Sherborn kids when they're in high school. Are they kind of kept out because those are Dover Metco kids? You know what I mean? Or they have to pay the fee that Dover.
The idea that I talked about with the Metco coordinator was that when kids enter Dover Sherborn High School or middle school, I should say, they also would get a farm pond sticker so that they can recreate with their classmates, basically. But children in
But you know what I mean?
You're missing the question, I think, Miriam.
So yeah, so I mean, some Metco kids belong to Sherborn, some Metco kids belong to Dover, and then they go up and become Dover Sherborn. So it's a Dover goes through Chickering. Then when he or she enters middle school, are they allotted a sticker as well? Do you know what I mean?
Actually, that's something that we can discuss. We could say everyone who's in the Dover Sherborn regional school district could have a sticker, or we could limit it to Sherborn Metco students. That's up to us.
I know it's just kind of splitting hairs there. I
Yeah,
support
it is
this. I think
splitting
it's
hairs, but it's a good point because Sherborn Metco students that started in Sherborn schools have Sherborn host families, which is another reason they should be able to go to Farm Pond. But if they're from in the Dover system, I don't know. What do you think? I'll throw that open.
Honestly, I'm not sure. I just kind of thought of it while it was coming up. I will say that the social side of things is huge, with the Doge, with the Metco, especially in elementary school, and having their families be able to come out, enjoy Farm Pond, and see their friends there. It's just, I see no reason not to do this whatsoever. I can't even. I'm trying to think of any kind of unintended consequences, like outside of a couple extra cars. In fact, I think I've seen Farm Pond crowded once this year. To the point where like I actually want to sell off an additional 50 out of town tickets to generate more revenue. That's a whole separate discussion. Okay, I got a bunch of hands. Let me take them in order. Jeff, you're first.
Yeah, I just want to reiterate, my question was, I still would lean towards limited to METCO students that started in Sherborn and then went up through once they were in high school and middle school, they would still be entitled, but probably not ones that came through the Dover school system.
Okay. Sean.
I actually have the polar opposite of Jeff's comment. I think we welcome these kids from a very young age to the Dover Sherborn Metco program. It's kind of one program. We do send them to two different grade schools because we have two different grade schools, but they rejoin and they kind of melt into the Dover Sherborn community. And I'm speaking as someone who had a Dover Metco kid that then lived through middle school and high school at our house, Kurt Wilson. And I think we should welcome it regardless of whether it's Dover or Sherborn. I mean, these kids grow up playing sports together in Dover and Sherborn from a very young age. I don't think we should be separating them. We should be welcoming them to Farm Pond.
And like I said, it might be splitting hairs to something. I don't know if this vote will matter too much. I'm gonna take people in order. So I see Stephen next.
I have two. I had one question, and now I have a follow-up question after Sean's comment. But one is, what's the total number of Farm Pond stickers that we issue per year right now? I'm assuming Jeannie, you probably have that info.
We probably issue 1,000.
Okay, and we're looking
That's
at
like first and second. We issue right now. We sell 150 non-resident through the lottery, and then swim team Dover residents get them for swim team also.
okay. So we're looking at adding something on the order of another 25. So that's 2.5% of it's pretty small. So again, I am definitely in favor. My follow-up question then after Sean's comment would be, well, should we then give Farm Pond stickers to the Metco students who are at Chickering also, since they're all one group? and then how many are we talking about now? And it's probably still only probably less than 50 still probably, but
Yeah, it's still less than 50.
I don't know if you would at Chick when they transition into the middle school, maybe something like that. Maybe I'm splitting hairs. Because one of my reasons is to make it very much inclusive with your classmates. So you're a classmate, all your friends are going to Farm Pond because you're in Pine Hill and that's where all the kids go, and you just go with all your friends, and your mom can drive you and this and that and whatever else. With Chickering, it's not really the case. The kids aren't going to Farm Pond and Chickering. If anything, well, they might be jealous.
If they get a non-resident lottery sticker.
Yeah, but the numbers aren't the same. I mean, unless the things have changed in the last 40 years, which they likely have. I mean, none of the kids in Chickering, I mean, I went through the Dover system. I mean, I ever saw them in Farm Pond when I was a kid. What I saw
Can
was
I just say something really quickly? We've been allowing this for a while. This has been going on for, the coordinators called in the past and asked if the Metco kids could come and get a sticker, and we've said, sure. So this year, one of the parents that host one of the Metco kids called at the beginning of the season and asked the same question. And we said that they could, and but so I was a little confused when I saw this on the agenda. I will tell you that very few of the Metco kids families have taken advantage of it in the years past. But they are able to get a sticker.
Jeannie, are the families informed when they enter the Metco system?
When they've asked in the past, the coordinator or the parent, they have been told that they can get stickers.
That's a different thing. If they've asked, does the town extend an invitation when they enter the Metco program?
That I don't know. This has just been when the coordinators have asked, or the parents of them, that are sponsoring the Metco kids have asked. We've told them most definitely they can get a sticker.
Right. I think this proposal is a little different. It's a proposal to inform the Metco families that they can have a sticker to Farm Pond for free. And they have to do the paperwork, of course, and register their car's license plate, etc.
So I just didn't want you to think that we've never allowed.
That's good to know, Jenny. Yeah, very good to know. Thank you.
At a minimum, we'll have a formal vote by the select board, which I suspect will support this, and so I at least make it formalized moving forward, at least that bit. Okay, I do want to kind of press forward. I got Sarah, Paul, and Addie. Sarah.
This is probably not a concern, but because stickers allow people to use the dump as well as use the pond, I didn't know if it would be a consideration to either have a card or something that's a little bit different, and it may not be worth considering. But I also will say I support Sean Colleen's view that once kids are in junior high and high school and all going to school together, both towns need to have access to Farm Pond.
Just real quick, Jeannie, when we sell out of town stickers to out of towners, how do we do the dump protection thing?
They get a non-resident Farm Pond sticker. So there's nothing for the transfer station on it.
Okay.
So that's what they would get, is just a non-resident sticker.
Perfect.
Okay. Got it. Paul, you had a question, or a hand raised.
I wanted to make a motion for the last half hour on this. That was to move approval of the use of Farm Pond for Sherborn Metco families. That includes those in the Dover school system and in the Sherborn school system for free, as proposed by Marion.
Okay, so you're formalizing Dover, formalizing Chicken. Okay. Well, I'm glad it took half an hour because I always like the motions at the end. Do I have a second?
Well, you made the motion initially, I thought, Marion, but I'll second it or you can.
Oh, second then, whatever.
Okay.
But there's,
Now, before I collect the vote, Addie Mae has her hand raised. So I'd like to hear from Addie Mae.
I just wanted to say that the farm pond is, can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay, sorry. Farm pond's open to anyone. We just have a limit on who can park there. So Chickering kids that are not part of Snapper's swim team can still join their classmates at Farm Pond. On the other hand, kids that are part of our Metco program who are split between Chickering and Pine Hill, those kids, in order for them to make the trek to join classmates, they would need a parent who would have a car and need a parking space. So I think it's a wonderful way to encourage continued connection with these students throughout the summer. And I'm from everything I'm hearing, I think it will be supported, and I hope that it will be supported across both schools, not divided by where those kids are, if they're at Chickering or Pine Hill.
Very good. Very good. All right, I'll let Diane rewind this meeting on YouTube and decide who actually made what motion, who actually seconded something. But I think we have enough here to collect a vote. All in favor. Let's see, Stephen.
Aye. Aye.
Jeff.
Aye.
Definitely. Marion.
aye.
Paul.
Aye.
I might as well. It's a great idea. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks. Before we leave this, Eric, there's one other issue that I need to bring up about the farm pond that may be relevant to Metco families. The Metco coordinator that I spoke to sometimes told me that she sometimes travels to the areas from which Metco families come, and finds that and they feel quite uncomfortable to have that Sherborn sticker in their window, because Sherborn is well known to be a real white, wealthy community. And I know the feeling, when you travel in other communities, it can be you can be seen as a potential victim or a potential, just other. So they don't affix their sticker to the window of their car. And Jeannie, I know you've heard about this, so you know exactly what I'm talking about. Yeah. They don't want to affix their sticker. When they go to Farm Pond, they show their sticker. And of course, the number has to match the license plate. So the guard has to know that they actually are the owner of that sticker. And I propose that Jeannie, that the Farm Pond personnel, Sue and the kids that she supervises, be instructed to allow people, especially if they're coming from Metco areas, to allow people to simply show their sticker and not have it permanently on the window of their car.
No, that's fine. We have a couple of people that work in different places, and they're allowed to just come in and show their sticker. So they don't feel comfortable having it on their car.
Okay, great. Gee, that's good to know. Can you instruct the people at the personnel at Farm Pond so that they all understand that?
Yep, I'll tell Sue Conley tomorrow and she will spread the word.
Oh, that's great. Because
All right,
I wouldn't want the Metco people to be put in that situation.
No.
And Jeannie, who I speak to, because right now they're coning off the boat access ramp, and they're doing that because they don't want people to park in that side parking.
Right.
But instead of coning off the parking, now you can't bring your boat down to the ramp and put it in there. Who do I speak to about correcting?
You can bring the boat down to the ramp. You just have to bring your car back up and park in the main parking lot.
I get that, but they should cone off the parking spaces, not the access. So the kids stop you. So you go, no one has told them. And then so you go there with your boat and it's all coned off, and the average person doesn't know that, and the kids don't know that who watch the gate there. I think the parking spaces should be coned off, not the access area there. That way
Oh,
you drive down, there's no, you come
No,
back up.
they should be open, they shouldn't, the cones shouldn't be there. It's just basically to stop people from driving down because the boat ramp gate is there. And it's open, and we've had people drive down to pick their kids up at sailing lessons, and that can cause some safety issues. So you should be able to get out of your car or have, somebody help you just move the cones so you bring your boat down and then come back, and we just ask that the cones be put back in place.
But no one tells the people looking at the gate there, just, they are
All
completely
right,
unaware.
they should be telling you, so I'll make sure that that gets taken care of.
Okay. And I'll just remove the cones. I think that's crazy. I really do. I mean, it was fine for years, but I sound like my father. All right, moving on. Coolidge Street, 108 Coolidge Street. Consideration of a 30, 60-day extension. That's anyone wants to take a motion on this right away?
Yes, if we do not get this extension, the select board letter to EOHAC is due on August 14th, which is coming up almost tomorrow, it seems. So we definitely need an extension. Given that it's the summer and many people are away, I think we can argue that we need a 30-day extension on this one, which would
Why
take
not 60?
60 days, sorry.
All right.
Can I make that motion?
So made. Do I have a second?
Second.
All right. Over Stephen.
Aye.
Jeff.
Aye.
Marion.
Aye.
Paul.
Aye.
And I'm gonna abstain because I still don't know. I'm still thinking about this one, how much my involvement's gonna be on this one here. I told Stephen I would actually administer this vote, no question about it, but I'm gonna keep abstain for now, and I'm gonna feel out how this goes with these developments. If it's still reliant a lot on framing water, then obviously I'm gonna be out. So I'll just abstain for now.
One more thing to point out with this vote, though, Marion, is we'll have to maybe get Diane or someone to communicate to all the boards and committees, because all the Concom and Board of Health are probably working on their input on this current deadline.
Yeah, definitely, Jeremy, and we need to get a letter off to Hack, so.
Yeah, and I have a
that.
question on that. Since, you voted to request the 60-day extension, typically the select board chair would sign that. Should I make that out addressed from Steve, your vice chair?
Yeah, I'd make him Steve.
Okay,
Thank you.
will do. And we'll notify the boards that we're requesting the 60-day extension, and hopefully, optimistically, we'll get it and we'll communicate that out as well.
Cool.
I
Jeannie?
have a quick question. We haven't heard about a site visit for that property yet, have we?
No,
Because
not yet.
normally, I would think that the comments would go after the site visit. So.
Well, we sort of had the site visit when it was only 8 homes or whatever it was, right?
Right, but this is a totally different project, so,
Yeah, they'll have to do another site visit.
okay.
And I guess
All right.
that is arranged by Hack, right?
Yeah, they have not yet reached out to coordinate that.
All right. Consent agenda.
Move approval.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor? Stephen.
Aye.
Jeff.
Aye.
Marion.
Aye.
Paul.
Aye.
I might as well. All right, page 2 of the agenda. Select board reports.
Well, you got to do the consent agenda first, I think, my friend. Do we do that already?
Yes, we did.
Actually, I didn't vote aye. Yeah.
Okay. I don't have any select board reports. Anyone else?
Just a follow-up. A follow-up that we did on the we had the last meeting there with Bob Murchison came in. I just want to let people know that, because it actually is done under the kind of the premise of mediation that has to stay privileged, and we met about it in executive session earlier. I just wanted people to kind of know that, that is in progress, and we're trying to balance that thing between like the public meeting we had before and what we necessarily have to do and under the privilege exemption under mediation. Paul, did you have anything to add?
That we're taking into consideration all the comments that we've heard from the public as part of the process.
That's right. Okay. All right, moving on. Town administrator reports.
Yep, thank you, Eric. I'm going to start with one that's not on here, but we just received today the formal letter of award from the Boston Metropolitan Planning Organization for the design pilot grant. So the town will receive $900,000 towards the design of the roadway segment where the Route 27 and 16 come together, the southern split all the way north to Coolidge Street. So we've gotten the formal letter that those funds have been awarded to the town of Sherborn and will be available for federal fiscal year 2025, which begins in September. So we'll need to go through some process to select the design consultant and so forth for that. So lots more to come on that. But just wanted to let you know that we have formally been awarded those funds.
Thank
Mary,
you. And like I said before,
question?
I would like to be involved with that design when it does move forward. I'm gonna do everything I can to keep gray stamped concrete out of it. Mary,
Jeremy, could I ask a quick question?
Sure.
I think you said MAPC. Did you mean the MPO?
The MPO, yeah, the Metropolitan, yes, the
Planning.
MPO,
Planning organization. Okay,
Yes.
thanks.
the Boston MPO.
Sean, is it quick?
Sorry, it is quick. I don't normally suck up to my boss, but I want to take this opportunity to congratulate Jeremy for championing this effort. It was a big lift, a heavy lift, and I think a huge win for Sherborn to get this pilot.
Yes, absolutely. I mean,
It's huge.
I don't want to say too much on screen, but to classify that as an intersection, I don't think people are going to realize how genius that was. I mean, I did that to someone else, and they were like, "What?" I'll go into that more detail offline. Okay, Jeremy, keep going.
Yep. Also wanted to update the board. We recently had a call with the S&P folks for the rating for the debt that we'll be issuing shortly. The call was last Wednesday. Appreciate and thanks to Pam, Deb, Tish, Heidi. Actually, Klaus was helpful as well. Those IT questions, very helpful, great teamwork. And we received word today from S&P that Sherborn's debt rating has been reaffirmed for AAA. So that is great news. And the rating, I'll send you the formal rating that we've received. You'll note it's actually one of the higher ratings that Sherborn's had received in the recent past. The management and financial flexibility numbers were much improved from prior ratings. So that's good news for Sherborn. In that on August 5th, the treasurer will be going out to bid for the new borrowing that we've been talking about. That's approximately $4.2 million in borrowing. More than half of that is attributed to the library project. We're told we can expect interest rates from 3.3 to 3.5%, which I think is pretty good for a 20-year borrowing. Once those bids are in, then we'll be coming back to the select board for your approval on that final borrowing.
Can I ask one question, Jeremy, about the S&P call? Did they have any sort of areas of concern that they noted, in the past, even with our AAA bond rating, they would raise some flags like, here are some areas that you could probably improve on?
There really was not much there for improvement. So again, I'll forward the detail to you and also to Dan and advisory, but it was a great outcome. They had questions about during the call, just of note, since we've been fully funding, the stabilization accounts and more or less we are meeting our financial policies. They had questions about what we will be doing going forward now that we've fully funded those stabilization accounts. So those are some open questions that we need to make as a group. Obviously we want to maintain those percentages of the stabilization funds, to the overall budget. But we may not need to contribute as much to those going forward. However, we really could be thinking of diverting some of those funds that maybe gone into general stabilization into capital stabilization, and looking at how we fund capital projects in the future. So I think there's an opportunity there.
Good.
And last update, some updates on staffing. So we have offered and have and he's accepted. Chris Caney will be coming back to join us as our building inspector and zoning enforcement administrator. He'll be back formally August 19th. So that's good news, kind of helping round out our land development folks downstairs in a more permanent way. Bob Fogarty has been filling in the interim. He's been great, and he's going to continue on as an assistant and a backup. So that's good.
That was a quick turnaround.
Yeah. Didn't work out quite as Chris did plan. So he's very happy to be coming back, and we're happy to welcome him back.
Good for us.
We heard news earlier this week that Holliston Select Board has supported the idea of a shared sustainability coordinator. So now we'll be putting together more of a formal agreement for review and approval by both select boards, but that was a good hurdle to get beyond. That position would be is envisaged to be a Sherborn employee, with Holliston contributing, their share of the labor and the benefit costs. They're looking for 10 hours of sustainability coordinator time. We're looking for, at this point, 20 hours. So it's a 30-hour position. That would be a Sherborn employee with Holliston paying their fair share. And it looks now that person would be sitting in Sherborn's town hall as well, which I think is a benefit for us. And we have ample space for that position. So hopefully we'll be moving forward with that. You'll see an IMA in short order, and then we'll go through the hiring process to get that person on board. I've reached out through different listservs to see if there's any communities interested in sharing a conservation agent, through the Small Town Administrators Association and the bigger Massachusetts Management Association. Thus far, haven't received much feedback. But we'll continue along those fronts, and we've re-advertised our conservation agent position again in the venues that it's been at, but have yet to see any new applicants.
Okay.
Two more updates related to the shared services with for public health. We've been able to get a job description for the public health nurse that's to be funded through that regional services grant. Sherborn's going to share a public health nurse with the town of Dover. Dover has it in their budget for their share. Sherborn's share is going to come through that regional shared services agreement. The job description was just approved by Dover's personnel board, and the position will be advertised shortly. And last update is regarding our veterans agent. Diana Hoke it has gone to some recent meetings with other veterans agents, and the Commonwealth is pushing for veterans agents to receive certain training, and also to work a certain number of hours to become certified to give advice to veterans. She doesn't really qualify for that training. So she's proposing that and she already has, she's reached out to the veteran agent that serves the town of Natick, also receives a stipend from the town of Dover for their veterans agent services. He's interested in doing similar for Sherborn, so that we can become more compliant with federal requirements for servicing veterans. Diana still wants to be involved in the activities and the events, but she's hesitant to provide that one-on-one guidance to veterans as they fill out forms and seek services, because she doesn't have the appropriate certification and really doesn't qualify to get it. So I think in the near future, we'll be pursuing that agreement with Paul Carew, who's Natick's veterans agent. I know him from previous work, and she's already discussed some of the details with him, but we'll bring back more of a formal agreement for you to endorse or comment on in the future. That's all I have.
Thank you. Yeah, that's quite a bit. Absolutely. Is that a motion to close the meeting, Paul?
The famous motion that you've been waiting for.
Right. And I actually am in a little bit of a hurry tonight. So, all right. So Paul moved to adjourn. Do I have a second?
Second.
All in
Second.
favor, Steven?
Aye.
Jeff?
Aye.
Marion?
Aye.
Paul?
It was a good meeting, so I'm gonna vote no. I think we
I'm
should
gonna
keep
vote
on.
aye because I'm usually that person, but I am in a hurry to get somewhere. So good meeting.
We took the executive session ahead of the end of the meeting, though.
I'll see you all in 2 weeks or in Farm Pond.
Wow.
All right. See you guys later.